I'm Terry Keeling. I am the Ward 2 incumbent on the Jenks School Board right now. I've just served out my first term. I am the managing partner of a professional financial services consulting firm in Tulsa, RDK and Associates. We provide risk management, compliance, appraisal management services for community banks in the region. We have a lot of financial institutions in the city of Tulsa that are clients, and they range anywhere from 15 million up to over $1 billion. So I have a lot of finance regulatory experience in the financial services world. I was a federal regulator with the controller of the office, with the controller of the currencies office when I got out of college, and I was there for 4 years before starting this firm. And so that's my professional background. I got on the board as John Phillips rolled off, and I was kind of recruited to be on the board for just being a parent in the district for so many years. We had Jenks Southeast Elementary as our family's elementary school, and at one point in time, I'd had a child there for 16 straight years. We had 3 different kids. One would roll off, and the other one would roll in. And 2 of my children are graduated, and 1 is a junior there right now. My wife was a Jenks graduate, so combined, we have over 50 years of Jenks experience, including my time on the board. So, as you are probably aware, running a school district, it's a huge entity. And so having that experience is part of the reason why I was brought on the board, and just giving back to our school, and not only for my kids, but for other kids, providing a great environment is, just a small role that I can play. And that's why I serve. Okay. And why I'm running for re-election.
It seems like probably by the time you serve a term, you're just figuring out how everything operates to a certain degree.
I explain it to people when I first got on the board. It's like sticking your mouth on a fire hydrant. It's such an enormous entity that it took me just 2 or 3 years just to get my arms around, and there's still so much to learn. I mean, it's like in any business of that size. You don't know what you don't know, and it's so I'm just kind of getting started in it. And I say that it's been 5 years, and I feel like I have a good base of knowledge, but there's still a lot to be done. Yeah. And how
big is the budget? I mean, how big is the staff? I mean, you talk about the enormity of it. How big of a business is it when you're looking at it from that perspective?
Well, it's over $90 million, approaching $100 million in revenue every year that's allocated. It's a $900 million assessed value entity. We have over 1,600 employees, 12,000 plus students. So, 8 different campuses, facilities. We've got all the different organizations. It's a big undertaking.
What do you think right now are the kind of the biggest problems that Jenks schools are facing? What are as you're coming into this, what are the priorities that you feel like the board needs to start addressing right now?
Yeah, teacher staffing, there's no question, and retention. It's, for us, the biggest focal point. Coming out of COVID, we had a real significant shortage of subs. That's improving, thank goodness, and which was a big issue for us during COVID. There's a lot of misconception about masking and all the different things that went along with it, but our number one priority was trying to keep the doors open. And with the sub shortage and the issue, and trying to keep teachers healthy and in class, created a lot of problems. But that to me is the number one issue, is to focus on what we can do as advocates to help retain and recruit our teachers.
What are the ideas there? I mean, so much of the salary portion comes from the state legislature. I mean, what can a school board do in that area? Because so much of that is determined.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very challenging question because it's limited. There's a lot of talk about voucher systems and all these different issues. With the funding formula that happened during COVID, there was an additional funding mechanism or additional funds that became available to public schools that got absorbed by some of the charter schools because of the, and Epic being one of them. That was a really frustrating thing to see, all these additional dollars rolling into the public school system and being eaten up by some of these other virtual schools that didn't make their way to the public schools. So we have to advocate for that.
Okay. One of the things that you talk about, you have a financial background, and so much attention is being placed on where is money going in the schools. How do you feel the school district has been doing as far as financial transparency, using those dollars to good use? I mean, when people bring up, where's the money going?
Right.
What do you tell them?
I tell them that we review the treasurer's report at every monthly meeting. Cody Way is our chief financial officer and does an outstanding job. He's a great asset to our district. We just came off of an annual audit that we received that report. We had no exception items. So those are the transparency items that we always, we're reviewing the budget, we're reviewing Cody's treasurer's report at every monthly board meeting. And the most important thing for me as the financial guy is, what does that audit come out? And that happens every year. It's a requirement of every school district. It's an independent audit done by a very qualified accounting firm. And that's our job, is to make sure that we're hiring the best to do those audits and to make sure that we don't have any exceptions. And thankfully, when we're told consistently that we're among one of the best run schools financially that they look at after they complete their audit.
The other big job of a school board member is the superintendent hiring and evaluation. How would you, how good of a job is your superintendent doing? How would you rate her?
Stacy Butterfield is, one of the reasons I decided to get on the board was because I knew several of the board members already, and I've known Stacy personally for many years, and I also knew her professionally as she was in all of the schools as my kids, as a teacher to a principal to going into the administration through the years as my kids grew. She's about as good as it gets, in my opinion. So we have a lot of confidence in her. We don't always agree with some of the stances she takes, but there's a lot of respectful dialogue, and she is one of the best communicators that I've been around, and I marvel at the job she does with the huge enormity of what Jenks is.
You came into this job at probably one of the most difficult times I've ever seen for public schools. I mean, there have been tense times before, but I saw the meeting with the lady with the dog. I mean, I understand what you're going through. So I have to just ask directly, why do you want to do this again? You're not getting paid for this.
Yeah.
So
the meeting with the lady with the dog, that was a classic. Fortunately for us, we only had one of those meetings, and that it was a very difficult time to navigate. None of us were prepared. And along the way, we were dealing with information, and Jenks is a very data-driven organization. I mean, we have lots of data and lots of information from the healthcare experts and lots of input from our parents. We've got a very educated, smart parent group, and they're constantly advising us on what we do and don't need to do. So it was very difficult. That time was, I think we handled it about as well as the school board could handle it. Obviously, there were, in hindsight, maybe some mistakes that we made, but in all, I think we did a pretty good job of navigating that, other than maybe that one meeting that we still felt like we handled that meeting pretty well, given, the emotions.
it didn't scare you away. I think
No,
most people would question. So what makes you want to come back and do this again?
Right now, I have a real passion for the underserved kids, and that sounds, very generic and pandering. But I had an experience when my son was starting to play tennis, and there was about 50 kids and their families that came out for the tennis team, and these were families that a lot of them didn't have the resources to play tennis, which is somewhat of an elitist sport. And I'm looking at all these parents here desiring something for their kids, and knowing, I'm looking around the audience, and I already know of 4 or 5 of the 6 spots that are already going to get taken from elite tennis players. My son has played tennis since he's 5 years old, and I was able to provide those resources to him. But there are so many parents that have kids that are disenfranchised, and we know that those are the kids that are the most vulnerable. And so Jenks does an amazing job of providing, whether it's on the chess club. I just visited the ag facilities we've got, and that just blew me away. It's the first time I'd been out there. So that to me is the biggest reason, is I want to protect what we have.